Okay, we can see you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes. Thank you for listening to my presentation about Korea-Japan reconciliation. So I'm a associate professor of religion at Waterford College in Iowa, and American board member of the IARF. So I was why I'm interested in Korea-Japan reconciliation, because I was in a sabbatical. 1 year sabbatical. I visited South Korea as a visiting scholar to the Sogan University to stay 6 months in Seoul, then meeting many scholars and students, because I was always concerned about Japan-Korea relationship. It's a very painful relationship in the past history. Therefore, I learned, first of all, Korean language in 3 months. To love country means learning language and history is important. So I learned the Korean language, and also I visited many places in Korea, in prison. Many Koreans for the independent movement, they are imprisoned by Japanese governors at the time. And I also met so-called comfort women, and they live in some facility together. So I try to meet them to get to know their past history and painful their life. But also during the Japanese colonial period, there was an independence movement, so-called March 1st movement. And so I try to visit the places of the March 1st movement in Korea. Also, Sodemon, a prison, there is a very one Yungasun. She is at the time 18 years old, but she really claims the independence of Korea, and eventually he was killed in the prison after the March 1st movement. So therefore, for me, after 1910, Japan annexed Korea until 1945, end of World War II. This was a kind of very difficult period for Korean people. So at the time, Japanese government forced to attend Shinto shrine, and also demanded Japanese language and no use of Korea in school and public. And also they demanded change their surname to Japanese surname. I talk about comfort of women. Also forced labor during the war. And the kind of a difficult memory what the Korean people has. That's why I try to deal with this issue seriously. Why such things happened, and how reconciliation possible in the future. Therefore, we have to know the history, the fact. That's why I want to, first of all, as you know, Korea is already divided north and south, and the history we have to know. So Korean history is you already know the Three Kingdom period, and Goryeo dynasty, and Joseon dynasty, and Japan colonial period, and independence until now. And there was a Korean War, the first Cold War between North and South, involving United Nations, and 2.5 million people died. Still, Korea is divided, North and South. How to deal with this issue? So, in a long time ago, there is a three kingdom, the Baekje and Shilla and the Goguryeo, the three kingdom period. And Eventually, the Goguryeo accepted Buddhism as a tool to unify nation. And also Baekje accepted the Buddhism as advanced knowledge and science. And also the Baekje was the one who introduced Buddhism to Japan around the 6th centuries. The Baekje. Baekje is this part, okay? This introduced Buddhism, a lot of knowledge to Japan. And Shira also eventually accepted Buddhism. Eventually Shira unified the nation to win the battles, defeated Baekje and Goguryeo, finally unified Korea, 668. Therefore, many Baekje people, the Shira destroyed Baekje. There were many Baekje people actually come to Japan as a refuge. Then lots of influence Japanese culture and politics. We are going to talk later. Eventually, Goryeo unified nation as a Buddhist nation. Therefore, many Baekje people come to Japan around the 6th, 7th century. So there are lots of remnant. I'm sorry, this is Japanese. Baekje temple in Japanese, Kudara temple in this area is near the Kyoto. Kyoto is here. And also Yasara Jinja is a Baekje people, Kudara people built such a temple still remain in Japan. And I don't have time to explain all the detail. Eventually, Buddhism kingdom of Goguryeo was then eventually Joseon dynasty, 1392 for 500 years. This was Confucianism, Neo-Confucianism, particularly Chushi, Neo-Confucianism ruled that time of Japan. The Buddhism was a little bit persecuted, and this was a very deep effect on Korean culture. Because Song dynasty actually was subject to the Chinese Song dynasty, was a master of the Joseon dynasty. But after Song was defeated by Mongolians, Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan, the Mongolian control China. Therefore, Korean people thought, we are the one who keep the Confucian culture. We are the center of Confucian civilization. Already China was Mongolian control, and later Manchurian control, Qin dynasty. Therefore, Korean people thought, we are the center, we are the little China. We are the chosen people to keep Confucius civilization. This is a very important
I'm sorry, Professor Terasawa. Please unmute.
Am I mute?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, you couldn't hear past.
今度は中国の
Oh, you couldn't hear in the past.
韓国、日本と韓国の和解について。
Kunihiko,
We couldn't.
we just lost a few minutes. We just lost the last couple of minutes of you when you managed to be muted. So, yeah.
So what did you not hear?
What, please go back to when you talked about being the center of Confucius civilization.
Oh, okay.
Just, only 2 sentences.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
We can hear
That's why Korean people thought we are the center of Confucius civilization more than China.
Right?
Okay. Then
これ通訳の人
Then Christianity came to
通
Korea.
訳の人
And already Catholic came to China through Korea through China, through Mateo Rich came to China, and they're successful. Therefore, Korean people receive Christianity through China. Therefore, so-called Western study, very modern Western knowledge, they kept, and they are very spread out. But however, Confucian, the king, Dai Yingun, worried about ancestor worship because Confucius ancestor commemoration for ancestor filial piety is critically important. Therefore, they become suspicious about the Christian faith might not have the commemoration of ancestor family value. That's why they have a huge persecution of Catholic modernists. 8,000 people are killed 1866. This was a very much reason for delay of Korea's modernization. Actually, Protestant missionary came 1568, Abendzera Methodist. And also after Japan annexations, 1910, many Korean young people joined the Christian church for the independent movement. Like a March 1st movement I mentioned, many Christians, 2/3 of the movement are Christian leader and Buddhist, and the new religion Chondokyo work together. As I said, Koreans suffered under the Japanese colonialism language surname. Then Korean people has a kind of tendency to analogy Korean people's situation with Israelites suffering under the Egypt. Therefore, Israelites, Exodus led by the Moses. Therefore, Korean people kind of waiting for the kind of messianic figure to liberate the Japanese colonial control. Now, actually, 1945, Korea was liberated because end of World War II. Then Christian president, Son Man-lee become a president, become a kind of Christian nations. He's a Presbyterian Princeton graduate. But Korean War, the 2.5 million deaths, and eventually 1960 military dictatorship, President Park control. The 1980 democratic movement, now Korea, South Korea's universal suffrage, but still North Korea communist dictator and nuclear missiles is a very intense situations. So on the other hand, Japan, as we already know, the Shinto and sun goddess, you already know that. Then Japan learned Buddhism through Paekche, one of the 3 kingdoms of Korea. And also the Prince Shotoku made Buddhism as a guardian religion. So he made lots of interpretation of sutra, Lotus Sutra, or so many stuff. His teacher was Eiji, is a Kokuryo teacher, also Paekche. Eso was his teacher of Buddhism. And also next, Shomu Emperor Shomu built a national project to build the Todaiji Temple, and also Prince Shotoku built a Horyuji. And so the kind of national project, Buddhism became a kind of guardian religion to Japan, centered on emperor. Therefore, lots of, even though Todaiji, large, bronze Buddha, actually many Paekche people, technicians, they helped build this Todaiji, large statue, like Kuri no Naka no Murajiki Mamiro. So he was also from the Paekche. The people helped that kind of national project. Then during the Tokugawa shogun period, at the time Choson dynasty was 500 years Neo-Confucianism culture. Therefore, during the Tokugawa period, Tokugawa shogun respect Confucius culture. Japanese shogun welcomed envoy from Korea and Korean Confucian scholar for 12 times so-called Korea-Japan envoy exchange of Confucianism and culture. For 12 times during the 250 Tokugawa period. Because of before Tokugawa, some Toyotomi Hideyoshi around 1590 invaded Korea, damaged so many stuff. Therefore, Tokugawa shogun tried to change to more friendship, learning Korean civilization of the Confucianism. So friendship was kept during the 300 years Tokugawa period. However, Opium War began in 1939. So Japan respected China and Korea through Confucianism. All the Japanese samurai learned about Confucius classics, from the childhood. They remember all annexed Confucius and Neo-Confucius classics, They really respect China and Korea. However, this Opium War, China defeated by British, this was shocked the Japanese samurai. And also India was colonized already by British, and China was defeated by the British. So next, maybe Japan. So therefore, Japanese samurai seriously determined to change to more strong centralized Japan to counter European colonialism. Therefore, India was colonized, but Buddhism comes from India. China was colonized, defeated by the Confucianism come from China. Therefore, so-called the Japanese samurai try to find out real roots of Japan beyond Confucianism and Buddhism, so-called national learning school, Kokugaku. So what is the roots of Japan, Japaneseness? It's a Shinto. Before Buddhism, Confucianism comes, Shinto there, and emperor. Therefore, Japan is no longer centered on shogun, but centered on emperor and Shinto. The kind of nationalistic tendency was raised up. And also, American Matthew Perry came to Japan to open Japan, demanding open. At the time, Japan was a seclusion policy, like same as Korea. The American Matthew Perry demanding open. The shogun was incapable to deal with this issue. Therefore, lots of nationalistic Shinto revival and restoration of emperor instead of shogun, emperorship, Shinto Japanese identity was raised up eventually, so-called Meiji Restoration, 1868. You already know that. The restoration of ancient emperor's authority. At the same time, rapid modernization, building a modern nation state to counter Western colonialism. Therefore, Japanese emperor used to live in Kyoto, but they moved to Tokyo. Tokyo became a center. And national body centered on emperor is like a parent. All Japanese subject is equally children. It's a kind of a national ideology. Invented identity through universal conscript at the end of the samurai, universal education, and state Shinto. As you know, Shinto was a very much animistic village religion, very inclusive village religion. But Meiji government tried to invent so-called state Shinto, which are very different from village Shinto. So therefore, to establish national identity centered on Shinto emperor, Japanese government at the beginning of Meiji, they tried to abolish Buddhism, destroy Buddha Shakyamuni. So nationwide, the persecution on Buddhism, was done because previous Tokugawa shogun was patronaged Buddhism. And therefore, in reaction to the Tokugawa shogunate, Meiji government tried to destroy 1/3 of Buddhist temple destroyed. Many Buddhist priests are forced laity, eating beef and marriage. were legally forced. The old Buddhist facility were removed from Emperor's palace. Japanese emperor was a Buddhist, since Prince Shotoku. But no longer Buddhist ceremony, but only Shinto ceremony in Emperor Palace. This is a huge change. Therefore, as I said, the attitude towards Korea, because of this change, because National Learning School is Kojiki Nihon Shoki is a ancient Japanese writing. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. At the time, Kojiki or Nihon Shoki was written for the history. At the time, legitimate Japanese emperors such as Emperor punish Shiragi. They went to the Shiragi to punish. I think there are many picture people came to Japan. That's why picture people has a kind of revengeful feeling towards Shira. That's why so many writing about is in Nihon Shoki and Kojiki. Therefore, the kind of a Japanese emperor as a master and punish Shira, part of Korea, as a subject. The kind of mentality was revived, But anyway, so State Shinto was, they say, State Shinto is not a religion, but the state itself, state rituals. Therefore, all people, Buddhist Christian, has to follow State Shinto through public school education. Therefore, all Japanese students, teacher has to bow to Japanese emperor's signature and picture. All public school teacher and students has to bow to Japanese emperor's picture and signature. This was a rituals through until end of World War II. Then molding Japanese people's mind towards emperor ideology and nationalism, patriotism. Therefore, some Christian teacher at the high school, Uchimura Kanzo, was a master graduate. He was a teacher of marine science in a high school. So he was a Christian. He was reluctant to bow to the emperor's picture. So this became a big event. So the first high school is the most prestigious high school. All students go to the University of Tokyo. That one teacher didn't bow to correctly. Then conservative nationalists accusing Uchimura because Uchimura was a Christian. Therefore, the kind of huge national debate. Is Christianity still legally? Yes, Christianity was legally allowed at the time. But Christianity is really patriotic or unpatriotic. The kind of debate, national debate. That's why eventually Uchimura resigned, lost the job, and he eventually created the national non-church movement. He loved 2 days Jesus in Japan because even Christian missionary didn't help him. He had a troublemaker or something. Therefore, he was persecuted by both nationalist and missionary. That's why he created independent non-church movement. But he was very much influential to young students, including Korean students. Some famous Kim Kyo-shin and Han Sok-wan was a students of became students of Uchimura and created very important movement in Korea. His tombstone, I for Japan, Japan for the world, world for Christ, all for God. It's very famous. So therefore, as I said, there was a chance I'm sorry. But at the time, most important is how Buddhism responded. Buddhism was persecuted, as I said, by the government. The Christian was also persecuted by the freedom of the religion. So how Buddhism responded to, whether help Christian or whether going to the government side. This is critically important. If Buddhist Christian work together for the public freedom of religion, easily State Shinto at the time, already 10 years ago, they was created, easily to deconstruct. But problem is, Buddhism was except few. They could not ally with Christian to defend Uchimura's freedom of public role of religious freedom, deconstruct State Shinto. Therefore, Buddhism, except few, the government side, to agree to Christianity is unpatriotic. This is a very sad event. This is my theory. If there's a three opportunity, Japanese Christian and Buddhist, if they work together, they would have been able to deconstruct State Shinto. They would have changed Japanese aggression towards Korea and China. If Japanese Christian and Buddhism had worked together to deconstruct State Shinto, there are three opportunities I'm going to explain. But they could not. Anyway, so Japan rushing towards modernization. Eventually, China tried to control Korea. That's why Japan-China war, eventually Japan was modernized much more than Japan defeated and China and took Taiwan and South Manchuria. And this became a kind of motto. So departure from Asia to become West. This is the kind of, at the time, Japanese mentality, departure from West. We have to become West. That's our own, And also social Darwinism. Power is everything, zero-sum game. Power only matters. Kind of a social Darwinism and Shinto nationalism combined together. They try to looking down other Asian nation, Korea, China. This was a great, gross mistake for the later Japan. Then 1904, the Russia eventually come to try to control Korea. Then a Russian-Japan war, after 10 years of China war. And then the first time the Japanese fought abroad in Manchuria. And every world think Japan would be crushed by Russia. But Japan was at the time know the limitation alliance with England and Theodore Roosevelt of the United States. Two big victory of Navy and land. So victory of Japan. Then eventually Treaty of Portsmouth. Japan victory, Russian defeat. But not so much Japan cannot demand a compensation money or everything. But because of Theodore Roosevelt negotiation, Japan was victory, Russia defeated. But not much. But in terms of Korea, because of this, Japan annexed Korea 1910. This is a tragedy of Korea, but also eventually tragedy of Japan too. This is so in other words, already Japan-England alliance, Japan acknowledged England's special privilege China, England acknowledged Japan's special privilege in Korea, and Prime Minister Katsura and President Taft kind of agreement. United States acknowledged Japan's governance of Korea. So Japan acknowledged United States governance of Philippines. Kind of a mutual agreement was already made. Then second Japan-England alliance, England accepted Japan's land control governance of Korea. The kind of a very difficult for Korean people. That's from 8 stages. from 1905, 1904, so many states accepting Japanese suggestion, but they say guarantee Korean land, but eventually, accept Japanese budget protection they eventually Japan annexed Korea 1910. This treaty clearly mentioned Korean emperor gives all rights of governance to Japanese emperor completely and eternally, and Japanese emperor accept transferring all of governance from Korean emperor. Of course, this is the treaty, but for Korean people cannot accept. It's a very difficult situation. But Meiji emperor died. The new Taisho emperor, at the time Japan was alliance with England and the United States, and Japan joined World War I as ally side. Therefore, Japan joined the United League of Nations. At the time, Japan also universal suffrage, very kind of democratic period. Therefore, Japan accepted Woodrow Wilson's kind of a self-determinism, and Japan was a permanent League of Nations. Japan proposed a racial equality proposal, but denied by England, Australia. Kind of a very democratic period. Japanese intellectual people are very Wilsonianism, self-determinism was a popular Japanese intellectuals. Therefore, Korean people also expecting kind of hope of independence from Japanese empire. At that time, as I say, 1919, March 1st movement, independence movement, began in Korea. At the time, a Japanese Christian, Yoshino Sakuzo, the professor of Tokyo University, he actually helped Korean Chinese students to independence movement. Yoshino Sakuzo. Then actually, he was a leader of YMCA in Japan. Many Korean students, Chinese students, was a member. That's why 1919 February, Tokyo YMCA, 600 Korean students get together for the independence. And his leader, Lee, was a student of Yoshino. This Tokyo YMCA's Korean students' declaration was very impacted Koreans people. Therefore, 1990 March 1st movement, 1,500 rally, so 2 million people, over 2 million people join this non-violent movement. Everybody has Korean people have a Korean flag, just as they're shouting independence, manse, independence. It's a non-violent movement. The most of leader is a representative of the Christians and the Buddhists and Chondokyo, very ecumenical interfaith movement, non-violent movement. However, 7,000 people killed, 1,500 wounded, 46,000 arrested. At the time, Japanese government made a very harsh treaty, as I said last time. The Yu Gansun, the 17 years old Korean girl, shouted in prison Korean independence, but he was killed. She was a Methodist high school student, But this movement also impacted China. So that's why Chinese students stood up the May 4th movement, for the democratic movement. Such a transnational impact. YMCA, Christianity, and also social justice. Such a transnational collaboration was possible, was done. But Yoshino, actually Korean government, temporary government in Shanghai, Yoshino invited him to press conference in Tokyo, all the kind of things. But the Japanese government still kept very military policy. But at the time, Russian Revolution happened. Many communist philosophy came into Japan. So Japanese government worried about. Therefore, they tried to ask religion to cultivate young people or something. That's why they tried to control religion. That's why Japanese government tried to create a religious organization law. But at the time, only one time, Buddhist and Christian worked together to against religious organization law, and state failed twice to ratify this religious controlled organization law. It was only one time Buddhist and Christian worked together, or the state failed. But this Buddhist and Christian should have gone much further to eventually to deconstruct state Shinto and would have made a solidarity with Korean Christian, Taiwan Buddhist, Korean Buddhist, Chinese Buddhist and Christian for their freedom and federation against Japanese aggression. This is what the Japanese Christian and Buddhist could have done. However, a Japanese Buddhist leader, Christian leader, their own concern about their own denominational protection. Rather, they ask state to persecute a new religious movement. It's a religious rivalry, Particularly Omotokyo Shisonomichi. It's a very Omotokyo was a popular religion at the time. And new religion, the Buddhist establishment, Christian established, asked the state to prosecute the new religion. Then actually police destroy their sanctuary, the kind of stuff. That's why Japanese government realized, religious people did not work together. They are concerned on their own denominations. Therefore, Japanese government ratified religious organization law after 5 years later, 1939, to control. This was a tragic why religion cannot work together, including new religions. The freedom we have to protect. But anyway, then Taisho Emperor died, the Showa Emperor Hirohito became emperor, and lots of things happened, Kanto earthquake is 100th anniversary of the Great Tokyo earthquake this September, and 100,000 people died in Tokyo. It's 100th anniversary this September. And at the time, 2,600 people, Korean killed, because the rumor spread out, Korean fired Japanese house. That's why many people become terrified, and the common people actually killed the Korean people. It's a Yoshino says it's a national shame, But also, Japan, United States, kind of a change for isolation staging to exclusion act to Korean Japanese immigrants. This became Japanese people resentment towards America's exclusion acts. But anyway, to try to make short, this period is a Great Depression came, very difficult period. Therefore, America, England didn't keep the Wilsonianism. They become a broke economy. Therefore, the Japan government tried to justify the aggressive policy to Manchuria incident. The Japanese military tried to establish puppet nation in Manchuria to establish puppet nation, Manchukuo. Then Japanese Buddhist, young Japanese Buddhist, and young Christian movement resisted against such Japanese aggressions. towards. This is the Buddhist side is it's a youth league for revitalizing Buddhism, established by Seno Giro. They say to bear the Buddha into the street and village. We have to return to Buddha Shakyamuni beyond denomination. We have to reform Buddhism that is now dead corpse to stagnant to fit new age. We have to fight against exploitation by capitalism and create a new society. It's a beyond Buddhist denomination or Buddhist youth created such an organization and Senogiro. And they against, they said Japan's action in Manchuria, action is no more than robber and gang with righteous mask. They criticize Japan's action is no more than robber or gang with righteous mask. So Seno organized anti-Nazi fascist movement or a popular front movement against a Japanese invasion of Manchuria and China. They organized labor union together, Christian socialists and even Marxists together to creating popular front against Japanese aggression. But youth came, but there is a kind of Japanese young military officers kind of coup d'etat event, the killing all cabinet member except one prime minister. The kind of things happened. And that's why martial law. Then in the name of martial law, Seno was arrested. The Seno group was arrested, But Japan aggression continued to Manchuria, not only Manchuria, but also northern China. Very difficult. And that's why Seno was imprisoned, eventually sentenced 5 years in prison. This movement, 500 members of the youth was. At the time, China and Korea too, there is a social Buddhism. Social justice Buddhism was also in China, Taishu, in Korea, Hanyong-won. That's why if they could have created a transnational solidarity of Buddhism with Seno and Hanyong-won, Taishu would have been very effective, but they could not do the transnational. The Christian side is a Kagawa Toyohiko, so social Christianity. He was at a very much difficult life in tuberculosis, but he was baptized. He had a kind of miracle survive, and he became Christian. He went to the most poor area of slum Kobe. He witnessing Christianity, and he get the scholarship to Princeton University Seminary. Princeton Seminary University he studied. He returned to Japan. He was the one who organized labor union, consumer corporates, farmer union, not the socialists. One Christians. Kagawa actually founded labor union, consumer corporates, and farmer unions. A very socially engaged Christian. He tried to. He was very concerned about also China and Korea. He went to Korea, China, to helping the churches creating labor union, farmer unions. When Japan invaded China, Manchuria, he really repentance for Japan's sin, anti-Japan invasion article. He wrote a lot. He always apologized Japanese sin against the law of love, Christian law, against the law of Christian law, the Japanese sin. He always apologized. That's why he was arrested. And particularly, he also Korea during the March 1st movement. One church was the Daemin Church massacre. The Japanese police put all Christian members into the church. It burned the church. The kind of a event. Always Kagawa really apologize to Korean people. That's why his Kingdom of God movement was also influenced Korean theologian Lee Taege. Also, he tried to help social welfare movement and also social farmer movement in Korea. That's why after the war, Kagawa wrote the official apology to the present Imams and Christian president, because both are graduate from Princeton. So Kagawa wrote the official apology letter to Japanese aggression to President Sonman Lee in 1955. The kind of stuff. However, as I said, Japan's during the 40 years colonial period, so many issues are going on. Therefore, how to reconcile? Japan also eventually become a difficult period, Pearl Harbor and kamikaze, so many people, atomic bomb, issue. Therefore, without Japan's self-critical examination, Korea annexation, leading Manchuria incident, leading China-Japan war, leading Pearl Harbor, the Asian Pacific War. So, now still same things, Russia's Crimea annexion, attack on Ukraine, China's Hong Kong, Uyghur aggression, threat to Taiwan. So many issues going on. Therefore, Japanese critical self-examination is very important. Therefore, we really think religious freedom is a key or foundation of nations. Do not put all eggs in one ideological basket, Religious freedom, our IARF, religious liberty is the most fundamental human right. This is the most important foundation of the nations. Religious diversity, freedom is the most important foundation of the nations. Therefore, even though Japan independent from San Francisco Treaty, at the time, all nation situation with a war with Japan was treaty compensation rights emerged, but Korea was not joined the no party to San Francisco Party because no war situation with Japan, That's why no compensation right. This is creating a very difficult issue. That's why 1965, Japan-Korea Basic Treaty, and eventually Japan helped $800 million to help Korean economy and society. Then this treaty say they eventually agreed to between both nation people, all cause of action has been completely finally resolved. Both nation people agree that no more claim of cause of action anymore. And Japan actually asked it for individual atonement, but the Korean government at the time said it is Korean government that handle each claim in Korea. It comfort of women issue, forced labor issue. This treaty is a very controversial actually. Still many Korean people do not accept this treaty. But the Japanese government said this is a still treaty. It's a legal law. But Korean people, it's a more important is a kind of human virtue, and it's a Confucius kind of value. It's a still difficult issue. Therefore, we really needs to self-critical examination, and the government is a very difficult, in terms of legal issue. Therefore, repentance, forgiveness at the grassroots level is very important. Particularly, it's a very important issue. Poland bishop sent a letter to German bishop. German sin is not only German sin, but all human beings' sin. We have to repent. The kind of letter created the grassroots kind of self-examination. Eventually, West German Chancellor need to Russia get. Therefore, but Pearl Harbor and Hiroshima, Japan, President Obama is the first sitting president to come to Hiroshima to embrace survivor, and Mr. Abe went to Pearl Harbor to apologize for the survivor. Why we cannot do between Japan and Korea? In a comfort of women is none of Japanese government official visited to comfort of women's house, So, of course, at the government level, 1998, they called so-called New Partnership of Korea, Japan towards 21st century. And Prime Minister said Japan's colonial control gave lots of pain, suffering to Korean people. Accepted these historical facts, sincerely reflect, apologize for them. The President Kim Dae-jun also accepted the kind of attitude. But that legal compensation, it's a atonement to pay economic development and mutual. That's why we have lots of issues. We have to finish the. That's why Japan-Korea relationship is very key because we have a religious freedom. Then in China and North Korea, so many religious people are persecuted by nationalistic ideology, by for example Chinese, very nationalistic communist ideology. Many religious people are persecuted, and Uyghur, Tibet, and Mongolians, and many underground Christian Catholic Church, Falun Gong, intellectuals, Hong Kong Christians suppressed. Therefore, Japan-Korea has to show the Asia how important religious freedom, how wonderful two different religions work together for the human rights and social justice. Also, Japan must help unification of Korea. And my wish is that all Japanese high school students learn Koreans, all Korean high school learn Japanese, Such a wonderful opportunity for the future interreligious transnational cooperation to beyond the nationalistic populism. Eventually, we have to forgiveness and loving enemy. Forgiveness come from God's heart, God's love, or eternal Buddha's universal compassions. So parental heart, all is my children. Eventually, such a grassroots, communication between Korea and Japan, then religious government cannot do. The religious organization has to build a museum in Tokyo, Japan's colonization of Korean history. We have to build a religious organization, has to build such a museum. Self-examination, repentance, reflective ability on the past history is a strength, not weakness. Therefore, we have to okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Terasawa.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have given us a lot to think about.
Yeah, too many.
I hope that if people want to reflect on that and add their thoughts or even contact Professor Terasawa, they will be able to do so I'm sure they'll be able to do so through the IARF website and the community that Luke was talking about before. So thank you very much.
Yes, my email address is here. So please email me if you have any question or criticism or anything, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. This brings today's session to a close. One thing I wanted to add was that the much of what has been going on here will be available on the website for future reference. Certainly, the material from our discussion on Ukraine and the videos will be available. For those who were at the event on Saturday, and I still have trouble pronouncing the name of the place, so I'm not going to try. Some of the photographs that were taken there will be on the website. They're not on the website at the moment, but we will be uploading them. As indeed, we will be uploading the photographs from the opening ceremony yesterday and a video recording of the ceremony for those who are interested. And I know my own children have asked me to send them a copy of the link, so I'm sure you will have friends and relatives who'll be interested in that as well. So thank you all very much for your attention today. We start again at 9 o'clock in the morning. with opening devotions, this time from, what shall we say, more mature people, older people, I was going to say, but maybe the older people are not that much mature, but never mind. But have a very good evening. One specific request I have is, could members of the new council please just stay behind for 1 minute. Thank you very much indeed, and have a very good evening. Thank you.